To open today, let's look at how today is going to address the things that matter to finance professionals. The why do I care question. And well, it's really about compounding results. First of all, I'd like to think that it's true to say that striving for continuous improvement in the financial reporting area is a key component of every finance and accounting team. Improving the efficiency of financial reporting by reducing the number of touches to consolidate numbers and provide the ability to move with the speed of business is pretty key to delivering the baseline outcomes that a business might want from the finance function. This foundation of speed and automation lays the groundwork for the next factor, delivering greater internal controls and increased transparency into business results. A reliable internal control environment is like the foundation of a house, right? So probably proper thought into the materials and design of a foundation that would stand the test of time would help avoid costly disruptive repair work in the future. So when analyzing financial data, or in fact any data really, a common question that needs to be answered is how do you know it's right? Getting your governance and internal controls around your data or how you can be confident of a good answer to this question. So now with automated and timely and controlled collection of our data, the next step is providing visibility and transparency into the operations of the business. We're now about using our financial data to provide the ability to ask and answer the important questions. When we get that right, we encourage ourselves and our colleagues to go one step better and to do what I like calling asking the next question. And this in turn allows the data and analytics to drive the prescription to the problem. So what comes next? Well, when we have timely, secure, reliable, and transparent information, we can use this insight that we derive to drive continuous improvement, challenging the status quo and acting on business insights provided by financial data, which would leave positive and continuous change. So now with confidence in our fresh and current numbers, driving insight, and then in turn driving innovation, driving change and influencing decision-making, we find something pretty exciting happening. We find ourselves in a business with a data-driven culture. We find ourselves in a business that consistently relies upon and promotes an analytics culture where decisions are executed, results are analyzed, and refinements are made. This leads to improvements in the efficiency and effectiveness of an organization, which in turn leads to higher profitability. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we find ourselves in a data-driven business where the finance role is central and has a strong voice in influencing the strategic direction of the company. And that's success for us and our business. The other thing to consider today is the way the world that we're living in is just constantly changing. Why is it that data, its collection, its management and use has so much buzz at the moment? Well, the information on screen has been collected from a variety of sources and represents a minute sampling of the kinds of data-related statistics pushed towards us every day. The point here is not necessarily to focus on any one item, but instead to absorb the trend, right? So there's more data available on more things from more places than ever before. And this is only going to become more pervasive. When one considers the scale of the opportunity here, it's just simply staggering. Today's data explosion and the demand for data-driven insight represents a huge opportunity, but at the same time, it's so vast and has accelerated so quickly that it can also be a bit overwhelming. And to that end, the line at the bottom of the screen is probably key here. Less than 0.5% of all data is ever analyzed or used. This means that if the data revolution seems a bit overwhelming, you're not alone. Think about how your business stacks up against it. You've probably got data coming into your business from all over the place. ERP, CRM, WMS, point of sale, websites, social, equipment, and device sensors, all over the place. How much of it ever really gets analyzed? At a guess, and from the statistic on screen, for most businesses, the answer would be not enough. So businesses who are getting their data strategy right, businesses who get it, are getting the benefit, and businesses who don't are simply disappearing. Financial teams who are ignoring the growth of data in businesses are probably disappearing even faster. There's a well-known tendency in the world of IT to throw around acronyms at every possible opportunity. So in this space we're looking at today, the two most common ones are CPM and BI. So there's some stuff on screen about them at the moment, but what we really want you to understand probably is twofold. Firstly, there is absolutely overlap between the kinds of tools that are usually called BI and those that are usually called CPM. And that's fine, and probably a good thing, because not everyone wants the same thing in the same order or at the same speed. As I spoke about a minute ago, one of the keys to success with these kinds of projects is to pick an acute pain to address first. So we at Microchannel specialize in helping prescribe the right medicine for your particular pain, and whether the sticker says CPM or BI shouldn't really matter. The second reason grows from the same place. So many people start with a CPM or a BI focused tool, and when the time is right, they blend it in with one another. Again, here at Microchannel, we're perfectly placed to help advise on when to start that blending and how to make it as seamless as possible. All of our tools are complementary and built neatly upon one another in whatever order is most appropriate to your situation. So it's not necessarily an either or, and there's no reason to assume there'll be any wasted effort. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to Mike just to talk a bit about BI 360.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul, for that introduction. Appreciate it. So with BI 360, it's really about two things. One is having access to all of the data across your enterprise and having a powerful tool that allows you to design the reports and budget templates and forecast templates that your organization requires. So my goal today is to give you an idea of the capabilities of BI 360. I'm going to show you some of the results and some of the finished reports, a little bit of the design capabilities, and dive into a couple of budget templates as well. So one of the things about BI 360, I mean, right from the start, you're going to see familiarity within the tool, right? So we're leveraging Excel. It's important to point out that you don't lose any of the capabilities of Excel when you're using the BI 360 tool. And what makes the tool really flexible is it allows you to build things within Excel, but also deploy them within Excel. And if you prefer, you can take those same reports that you built into our budget templates and deploy them via the web. So it gives you a lot of options for your users. So another option that you have, or a couple of options that you have, is you have the ability with BI 360 to be able to report live off of your ERP. And that's all data on your ERP, not just the general ledger level, but the sub-ledger level across all modules. And on the next slide, I'll give you a list of the ERPs that we're integrated to live out of the box. So the big question is, okay, I'm reporting now off of my ERP. What about the rest of the data across my organization? So BI 360 allows you to consolidate and report on any data across your enterprise. Doesn't matter really what that is, and I'll dive in a little bit more to that on the next slide as well, architecture slide. So some cool things about BI 360 that you'll love as a product is that it has tree structures. So if you've ever wanted to build some type of a hierarchical tree report, whether you're talking about multiple companies and company structures or project structures or locations or lines of business or really anything where you could use a hierarchical tree structure, you can create an unlimited number of reports using tree structures. So pretty powerful stuff. And I will show you a little bit of that today. BI 360 allows you to report on any currency. So if you have an FX service and you want to import all of those currencies that you work with, very easy to do that. Eliminations. So there's probably a few companies on the call today that have multiple companies and you've struggled with eliminations. Maybe you're doing those manually. Well, if you don't have a lot of eliminations and you do them manually, okay, no problem. You can still do that within BI 360. In fact, we allow you the ability to make adjustments. So you can build a template and create elimination adjustments within BI 360. But if you've got a lot of those intercompany transactions and you'd like the auto elimination process to be part of the solution, BI360 also incorporates that. Easy budget forecast contribution in Excel or via the web. I'm going to show you via the web because I'm going to transition from building reports in Excel over to the web portal. So while I'm there, I'm just going to show you easy budget contribution via the web. BI360 allows you to build flexible budgets and forecasts. So if you're doing a single year, a multi-year budget, no problem. You want to do a rolling forecast. You want to do a 10-year forecast. Really anything that you want to do. Line item detail, spreading, unlimited number of versions. So that's one thing that people struggle with when they're using Excel is the version control and security and things of that nature. Well, with BI360, we address all of those issues. So the slide that you're looking at here, this is a very simplistic slide. It's designed to be that way. It's not indicative of our entire product offering. What this is just to help you understand the major components, most of which we'll be talking about today, and how they interact with each other. So the first part of our solution, kind of where everything starts, is with our report writing tool. As I mentioned, we're an Excel add-in. So the first thing that I want everyone to kind of grasp is the fact that it doesn't matter whether we're talking about reporting or we're talking about budgeting or forecasting, at no time do we ever store data inside of Excel. So we need a data source to pull data from and a data source to push data to. So starting off with that, you'll see this little dotted line here that goes into the ERP. And by the way, these are the supported live integrations, the supported live ERPs. So that live integration goes into your ERP. And what that means is that if you just posted a transaction within your ERP, we can report on it instantaneously. And again, we can get to all of the data within inside of your ERP. So subledger data, if you have across all modules, and if you have third-party products or you have customizations within your ERP, no problem. Our reporting tool comes with a very easy to manage integration tool. So you can add those fields for the purpose of reporting. Okay, so you get it. We can get to all the modules, all the information across your ERP, but what about the rest of your organization? So maybe you've got a external CRM solution or HR payroll solution, or like Paul said, maybe you've got a POS system or any type of industry proprietary system where you have data where you'd like to be able to for the purpose of reporting and budgeting, be able to consolidate all of that data, right? This is the power of BI360. So the way that we do that is we have a pre-built Microsoft SQL data warehouse. So it's BI360 data warehouse. Yes, it's a data silo, right? It's going to store the data. And I know people, when you talk about data warehouse, they start to cringe. They see this huge data silo and a long line of IT people, and that's not what BI360 is at all. The entire product is built with self-service in mind. So this is a very familiar, intuitive, easy to use product, and that includes our data warehouse. So although our data warehouse stores the data, it also does a whole lot more. So you see here consolidations, which we kind of talked about and highlighted earlier. So all of the consolidating all of your data, doing all of your eliminations across your company, auto eliminations, rules to eliminate that, a full currency engine. And this is also where those trees reside. So an unlimited number of trees within your data warehouse. And what you'll notice is our report writing tool is also integrated to the data warehouse out of the box. So essentially, I can say I want to run a live report off my ERP and then switch 2 seconds later and run a report off my data warehouse. I don't need to switch a database. The report that I built automatically knows what the data source was. Okay, so I'll show you that right from the beginning. So the next step in this process is our budgeting and forecasting tool. Essentially, this tool is exactly the same as our report writing product. Reporting, there's one exception. So reporting is you're pulling all the data, right? So budgeting, you're pulling data, you're adding data, you're manipulating data, and then you need to store that data back. And where are you going to store it? You're going to store that data into the data warehouse, right? We're not keeping any information inside of Excel. So as soon as you make that contribution, that data is stored back into the data warehouse. So think about the number of companies that you could have stored data, number of departments, the number of versions for budgets and forecasts, all stored in the data warehouse. So it goes through your workflow approval process, it gets the approval, it's immediately available for reporting. So imagine you're in a report, You want to look at as a user, an end user, you want to do a actual versus budget, and you say, yep, you look at a filter and you say, I'd like to see budget version number 10. Boom, that data's up instantaneously. And I will also show you that from the beginning as well. So both of these products are available either via Excel or via the web, okay? So we're not going to talk much about dashboards today, but just so that you know we have a dashboard tool, you'll know that notice the dashboard tool is also live off the ERP and also integrates with the data warehouse. You'll see a glimpse of it when I'm inside of the web portal, but we won't be diving into this too much today. So the last thing to kind of just point out is you see here Power BI and Click. So a lot of our customers use advanced analytics, and the purpose of me putting these tools here is to represent the fact that both of these tools and all advanced analytics tools, one thing they need is a data source, right? There is no better data source to pull data from than your pre-built BI 360 data warehouse. So essentially, you can do ad hoc query, which isn't illustrated on this screen, but you do ad hoc query with BI 360. You can do formatted reporting. You can do budgeting and forecasting, dashboards, advanced analytics, all off the same data across your enterprise. Okay, so powerful stuff. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move over to the product demonstration. So what you see here, I'm going to just for setting the groundwork here, what you see here is a report that I'm running off of Dynamics Nav. So Dynamics Nav is NAV is my ERP in this case, but all of the ERPs that you saw listed in the architecture, they all work the same. The data structure is different, but they all work the same. Tool itself doesn't change, only the data does. So I'm running Excel 2016. You'll notice Mike Kimbrough here, the user, and I'm running live off of Dynamics Nav, and here's my sample company. I'm using the sample company. I don't have Dynamics Nav running in a corporation. So using the sample company, Kronos USA. So you'll notice this is a finished formatted report, and I don't have any data inside this report until I tell it what to get as a user. So I have the ability to go in and make some changes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and maybe select my departments. So if I wanted to select or deselect my departments, I could do that, as you can see there. And then I select my period the same way, and then I say run the report. So what you see, I'll probably boost this up a little bit. Looks like GoToMeeting might have shrank it down a tad bit. Normally the outside of this is a little bit larger for you to see, but anyway, this is a finished formatted report. And you'll notice that it looks very indicative of what you'd find inside of Excel, right? So I have conditional formatting with my traffic lights. I have some 3D graphs on the right-hand side, but a pretty clean looking report that I can scroll through and see all the information. I can add in non-financial information. So if I wanted to add in statistical information like square footage or head count, no problem, I can do that. If I wanted to drill down and see what makes up this number here, I can simply right click, and hopefully everybody can see that, and you can see that I have drill downs. So important to point out that both these filters, what we call parameters, and these drill downs are defined by the person that builds the report. So here you only see one drill down, which I drilled down. I'm looking at the general ledger level transactions, and I can pop right back into the report. But these are definable by the person that builds the report, and you could actually drill from a report all the way back to the source document within BI 360 and see something like a vendor invoice, the quantities, amounts, descriptions, etc., without ever having to have access to Dynamics Nav or your ERP, okay? So pretty flexible tool. One of the things that, and we'll talk more about the tool because the tool doesn't change when we go across different databases. I'm going to show you more examples, but from a design perspective, just talking about what this all means is that really essentially what BI 360 does, aside from making Excel a lot more powerful, is it provides all of your data within the Excel environment. So here you see that I have all of my financial data. You know, these are all the sample modules that come out of the box with Dynamics Nav. So I can go into any one of these modules, mix data across my organization in a report, and be able to run that. And how is that done? So you see the GL entry here, and hopefully everyone can see that. You see account. I just drag account in here into cell C9, right? So then I have account name. Well, account name is just an attribute of account. So I just pull my account name in and so on. When I want to go through and add a period function, you can see that I have all of these columns are filtering year to date. you'll see that I have year-to-date here. I can drag year-to-date across, use the standard Excel functionality, drag it across my columns, and it will now filter all of my data year-to-date. So variance is obviously not a year-to-date thing. It's a calculation, but it'll do actual and budget year-to-date. So once I'm done with that first row, all I do is copy this. I come down a few more rows and I select and paste it and select different accounts. Come down, paste it again, select different accounts, right? So I'm looking at revenue accounts, cost of good accounts. It takes me literally a couple of seconds to go through and select my accounts. So quite easy to do that from a design perspective. For me to filter the data on this report takes less than 5 minutes. What takes the time is building in all the stuff that you're familiar with, right? Building in the Excel graphs, doing all the, making it look and formatting it the way that I want to, right? So I'm going to go ahead and switch gears here now. I'm going to close this report and I will open up a report using the data warehouse that I've set aside here. So you notice that I just launched the report. It was an Excel file name. I launched it. It automatically knows what the data source is, right? So I'm going to go ahead and run this report just in consideration of time, and I'll talk about the parameters as it's running. So what we've introduced is a couple of new parameters. Remember, these are definable by the person building the report. So you see entities. So this is right where you start to see now, those consolidation capabilities. So I've selected my entities just like I would select departments or accounts or anything else. And what it's done in this particular report is it's consolidated all of my companies into one report. I didn't separate out the companies, but don't worry, I can separate out all the companies, and I'll show you that coming up shortly. So I could choose the period, you've seen that, but here's the cool thing. Remember we talked about in the architecture slide, taking data from any budget version and bringing it into your report? Well, you'll notice here in column I that I have my budget month. So this is my scenario. So it's saying, well, what do I want to run, a budget, or do I want to run a forecast, or what have you, right? So if I were to have changed this to forecast and ran this, what it would do is it would bring back my forecast data. Well, this assumes that I only have one budget and one forecast. Well, what if I had 10 budgets and 10 forecasts? Well, then I would put version here as a parameter. So as a user, I could go in and say, I'd like to see forecast number 6. And boom, it's going to bring back that data just like you saw it bring back the data from this report. Okay, so really powerful stuff. So with the data warehouse, I can do all the same stuff. I can drill down. So you notice now I have multiple levels of drill down. So that you didn't see before. You saw just one drill down, including pivot tables. So I've got a pivot table for general ledger and general ledger detail as well. So a lot of stuff to make working with the report very easy. And you'll also notice that I have expansion groups in this one. So I've got graphs with an expansion group, so I could collapse that if I wanted to. But I've also got expansion groups at the account level. So I'll boost this up a bit so you can see it. And what that does for me is it allows me to condense the report, but still have all the detail behind the report as well if I feel like expanding it. Okay. So a little bit about the design side from the data warehouse. Here's the big difference, right? So if you go into the data warehouse, what you're seeing now is all of the data across your enterprise, right? So you have, your financial data probably coming from your ERP, obviously, right? So, but what about things like HR payroll? You've got an external payroll product, or you've got an external projects product, any data source, Google Analytics. So real life scenario, we use Google Analytics and we match that with revenue to see how it trends together, right? So any data across my organization, I can drag and drop into here and build reports. Something that I'll tell you right from the start, if you don't like the way these reports look, no problem, right? Design them however you want to, right? It's all about that data. Remember, right from the start, having access to all the data and being able to design the products, the tools, the reports, and the budgets and forecasts that your organization needs. That's the flexibility of BI 360. And it works the same way, right? So you look at it, account, drag in account, you look for account description, drag it in, et cetera, okay? So in consideration of time, I'm going to step it up and talk a little bit less about each report and just kind of show you the power of these reports as we go. So one of the things I like to show is the decision pack. And what this decision pack is, and what you'll notice right from the start, is there's a bunch of reports down here at the bottom. So again, I can select my parameters, so choose the company, budget scenario, and the period. So notice this doesn't have any data. I'm running it while I'm talking. Profitability this month was moderate. Now it just changed it all, right? So it didn't know what the company was. It didn't know what the period was, because it's populating this report based on the results. So now it came back and said the profitability this month was great. All those drivers inside the report have changed. And again, I'll boost this up a little bit. And they've changed because of the data that I've asked it to query, right? So now I've got all of my numbers populated, all of my graphs populated, all of my data. It actually populates narratives, all predefined by me. I determined what's good, great, poor with respect to revenue and other categories, right? And if I change these parameters, I filter back different data and the results would be different. So these are great for management reports, board reports, shareholder reports, things of that nature. And in these reports, you can do KPI dashboards. You can do another P&L variance if you like. So yet another look at a different kind of P&L, cash flow, balance sheet, really any kind of report that you want to put inside of this, you can. And all of them are populated based on the data that I've queried here, okay? So next report, I'm going to show you, really we're moving more into the area of consolidations. So you'll see here in this particular report, I've got the company again. And what's interesting about this, I'll actually bump it up before I run it so you can see it a little bit clearer. What's interesting about this is I have my entity description in one column. And this is where we kind of start to make Excel a whole lot better. So you'll notice here that I've selected 3 different companies, right? Australia, Canada, and US, but I've only got one column. This is what we call dynamic expansion. So as soon as I run this, doesn't matter if it was for 3 companies or 10 companies, it's going to dynamically expand Excel and put each of those companies in columns. So here you see I've got individual results for Australia, Canada, US. I also have an elimination column. So this is just a report outside of my standard audit reports for elimination. So if I happen to be running this report and see numbers like this, means I need to tend to something, obviously, right? And I also have a consolidation column. So I've consolidated each of my entities into one column. But again, you have all the flexibility you want. If you want to add currencies in here, you can do that as well. So this is showing you dynamic expansion with the ability to put companies across columns. And I will show you one where we do trees, because we talked quite a bit about trees so far. So what you see here is my tree, and within my tree, I've got 2 separate trees set up. I have a geographical tree and a line of business tree. So I'll expand this a little bit. So here you see my Asia Pacific region, I have a North America region, and then I have lines of business. So in my lines of business, I'll come to those in just a second. So Asia, with respect to consolidating geographically, I'm going to run this at the Asia Pacific level. And what you see is a report that's going to consolidate at the Asia Pacific level. So it's consolidating Australia and Singapore into one tab, but it also has separate tabs because I told it I wanted that. And I have each separate entity and their individual results on separate tabs. So I could just scroll through that. But if I said, hey, I just want to see Australia individually, no problem. I can do that as well. Boom, there's the results for Australia. But the other cool thing about this is, and what it does is it saves me from having to build a whole bunch of reports within a tree, like, build 40 different reports at different levels. I built one report and I can use it across any level within the organization. So what's great about this now is I have lines of business. So it works the same way with, this particular company, I have manufacturing and distribution. So if I want to see my manufacturing companies, it works exactly the same way. It's going to give me a consolidated total of my manufacturing companies and the individual tabs for each of those manufacturing companies. But I can do the same philosophy again across projects, products, anything that I can dream up where I want to build a hierarchical tree structure, okay? And I could have used the same type of tree structure report, but put all my companies in columns or put all my companies in rows. It's really flexible and it's completely up to me. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch gears. And I'm sorry about this, but my web browser timed out, so I'm going to log in, but it's okay. It's a short delay, but you'll get to see how we log into BI 360 anyway. So I'm going to go in here as a user. I would go in and type in my name. This is a demo environment, so I'm just typing in the demo environment. But as a user, I'd type in my username and password. And it might be a tad bit of a delay with GoToMeeting loading up the web portal, so I'll give it a second. So I'll expand this view so everybody can see it. So within BI 360, we have the ability to do a web portal. So here you see the thumbnail view, but I'm going to go to the carousel view because I really like this. So what you can do here is you can set up folders for CRM reports, financial reports, however you like those folders to be based by user, and each of the reports, dashboards, and budget templates will be in those respective folders, right? So I can flip through this and look at all the different reports, and you can see the types of reports, AR, sales reports, analytics reports, anything. All of these were designed in the same tool that I just showed you. And all we did was just upload them to the web portal. These are not the actual reports. These are just snapshots of the report. So if I launch this report, this is the same first data warehouse report that I showed you today, okay? So as a user, I can do all of those same things that I could do inside of Excel, but I'm in the web portal, right? So that if you have those users that you just want easy access, you can't design anything from a report perspective, but from a user perspective, drilling down, I can do all the drill down stuff that you saw before. You can see that. I can change parameters. I can reflect back to previous times that I've ran the report. If I wanted to download this report to Excel, I could download it. It would do all the auto formatting and formulation. Why would I want to do that? Maybe I want to run my own calculations inside of Excel. So really powerful stuff in terms of accessing the same data as a user via the web, right? You don't lose any of that functionality that you had in Excel as a user. So great way to deploy this. And if you also wanted to expand the view to be able to see the report, you can do that as well. And there's some sharing capabilities and such as well. So you get it. There's the reporting tool is pretty powerful. And as I said before, we have the budgeting solution is essentially the same as the reporting product, except now we're going to store back data. So I'm going to switch over to budgeting. So now I'm in the budget submitter area. So I'm going to flip through some of the templates. One of the things to keep in mind here is that when we're talking about templates, we're not talking about a proprietary environment where you have to, conform to our templates. We're talking about, these are examples. Build them the way that you want them. Build flexible budget templates that are specific to the needs of your organization. So here you see personnel budgets, you see travel budgets, CapEx, cost of sales, revenue and cost of sales, sales budget, and other expenses. So I see the budget template I want. All of this was designed in the same tool you saw earlier. I launched my budget and I can do the contribution. So I can contribute in Excel the same exact way I can contribute via the portal, but the portal tends to be much easier for your average contributor. So what you're looking at, probably, this is a budget template, but probably you're thinking, hey, this looks a lot like a report. I can reflect back to previous times that I ran it. I can change parameters. It's quite the same. So from a general overview, from a demonstration perspective, blue means I can't change it, right? This is coming from my accounting system, right? I can't change my account structure or descriptions. Yellow means, hey, enter here, right? So your users will come in and enter in here. Now, just so you know this quickly, is that people in finance, right? If you're a finance director, you want to have access to all the budget templates. So that's what these parameters are for. I have access to all the companies, I have access to all the departments, et cetera, et cetera. This is probably not your typical contributor. Your typical contributor might have access to 2 departments, right? So they enter in for department 100, come up here and change this to 200, enter in, save, submit, right? So I'm going to make this really simple. You can also pass these budgets out predefined. right? So here you see the budget template, and this is predefined, meaning Mike doesn't have to select anything. Mike's doing it for his department. When I'm done, I'm either going to say save because I'm coming back to it later, or submit, which is grayed out. We don't want people submitting our templates in our demo environment. I submit it. That means I can no longer make changes. It's going through that workflow process, right, for approval. So let's just get into this. So if I go into telephone here and I say I want to do a contribution of 700, and I'm going to take that 700 and drag it across the year. But hey, in March I'm going to make that 800, and in June I'm going to make that 600. Okay, so I'm done, right? If I'm going to contribute at the account level, I'm done. I can just do this in every row, save it, submit it, I'm done. But maybe we're not that simple of a company. So I'm going to right click on this cell, and what it did is it brought up a pop-up that allows me to do other things. And in this case, I'm going to show you how we can do a spread. So here you see my current contribution that I just entered in, and then you see my reference data. Well, in this case, reference data can be anything. Last month, last year's, last 10 years actuals. In this case, my reference data is last year's actuals. So we're a simple company, but we want to keep it simple. So I'm going to go ahead and zero out my contribution, and I'm going to apply in last year's history. Well, you can also see I can do seasonality. All of this is definable, right? But I'm going to copy in last year's history, and I'm going to apply that. And now my current budget contribution is exactly the same as last year. Well, I'm going to increase that by 6%, and I'm going to apply that. Now you see the change that took place. I say okay, and now you can see that that budget line for my telephone has now increased 6% over last year. Pretty simple, all right? But now you might be wondering, well, why do some of those cells have borders around them? Well, we use borders, but you can use whatever you want. You can make it a different colored cell or whatever. But what it's indicating here is that there's line item detail. So if I went into office supplies and I right-clicked, you would see that I have line item detail that's rolling up to that account level. Very easy for me to go in and put in something else. So if I wanted to go in, this is what office supplies, so I put in paper, and I put in my amounts. I'm going to put in 4,000 here. We buy a lot of paper, and I'm going to put in 1 million here. Yes, I know that's a lot of paper, but at least it'll show you how it rolls up, right? And you can also add comments. So here you see a comment where purchased from Staples. So you can add comments within any of these cells. And then I say okay, and now you see my current budget contribution, and there's that $1 million+ roll up into it. So really, I'm done. Save, submit. Doesn't get much easier than that. And this principle works across all of the budget templates within BI 360. You can build them how you want. You can use all that same formulation from Excel. Some cool tips and things to keep in mind here. One is that, I put in my actuals. I just made them available for me to view. I can't change them, obviously, right? Blue means I can't change. And I said, show me my last actual period is October, so I also see forecast data as well for the remainder of the year. I can also bring in other budget templates. So here I have a payroll budget template. I can't change any of that template, but I have it for the purpose of reference, or I wanted to include it or what have you, but just to show and illustrate that you can bring in templates from other, or data from other budget templates. And if you wanted to put graphs in here or what have you, pie charts, you want to see how you're trending from last year, again, that's a design thing. It's completely up to you as a user or a company. So one last thing that's really cool, and by the way, when you're doing Excel, you have all these versions, and you have to do all the version control and everything inside of Excel. Very difficult for you to keep up with. In BI 360, you've noticed I have one tab that can go across all the different departments, all the different companies. I have one template, and it's flexible, right? Because we're not storing data in the template. So one last cool thing before I go is I have directions here. Now, these are demo instructions, but if your company wants to put in policies, procedures, step-by-step instructions for the users, you can do that in here as well, right? It's Excel, so free formatted notes and putting in all the things that you need is just part of the tool, okay? So with that, I'm going to conclude my demonstration, and so much more I'd like to show you, but we're out of time, so I'm going to conclude my demonstration and turn it back over to Paul.
Thanks, Mike. That was really good. appreciate the demo. Right, so guys, we've been able to see so far how we can completely transform the capture, management, and reporting of our financial data. And we've seen how we can use our reporting tools to provide a solid analysis base as well. So what we're going to do is take a quick look at now how we can take that base and drive it into new territory. And to start with, let's talk about what analysis is by contrast to reporting. So I like to say that analysis can be captured into two sayings: asking the next question and changing visibility into opportunity. There's a typical next question from visibility to opportunity chain on the screen now. But just as we did on with our last tool, let's spend less time talking and more time showing. So I'm just switching to QuickSense. So this tool that I'm showing right now is called QuickSense, and I've jumped in here to a travel expense and a management app, and what it's showing me is my this is overall expenses, and then I have those expenses broken down into mainly travel and into food. And I can see my overall tracking, but my food expenses looks a little bit over budget. So what I can do is I can go and make selections. I can go and select dinner, lunch, and breakfast, and just do a little tick here. And I can see I can now at the bottom have a trend line of what's happening there. So as we can see in November, there is quite a bit of variation between our actuals and our budget. So what I can do is I can go and select November. Now that I've made my selections from my dashboard, so I've selected dinner, lunch, and breakfast. You can see up here in this, we call it our selection bar, that I've selected those three, and I've selected November. So those are the only items that I have selected. I'm now going to change tabs. And now I'm looking at an airfare tab, and I'm not really too interested in airfares right now. I'm more interested in food. So I'm going to skip on through, and I can see now I've come to my food expenses tab, and I can immediately see it's broken down by person, and I can see that Eileen is spending about 3 times almost roughly the average meal cost, and that meal cost is brought in from an external source. So I can either go and jump on a phone and say to Eileen, hey, you're spending a bit too much, or maybe Eileen is the CEO and that is not a problem. So what I'm going to do now is just clear, excuse me, the period. So I can now see once I've cleared. So I still have lunch, breakfast, and dinner selected, and I've just cleared November. And I can see that Eileen is still, even after clearing the period, she's still above average. Everyone else is fairly okay. Derek is close. I can see in June, for example, if I select June now, we were well under budget, and I can see Eileen doesn't actually pitch up in this. So maybe Eileen was sick that month or had a month off, and that's why we were well under. So, and that's, I didn't have any questions. I wasn't really thinking of anything. It was kind of natural. Again, this is a demo, so I have a bit of pre-plan, but it does naturally lead to questions. What I can do now is I can clear everything at the top and just jump back into the airfare expense, and we can have a quick look at this. So I can see that the average employee airfare, if we book in advance, is $191. If we don't book in advance, it's $205, which makes sense. Hard to believe the difference is only $14, but there it is. However, there's something that is quite interesting here. I can see in August, something does happen. So if we'd booked in advance compared to not booking in advance, we've actually lost a bit of money. So in August, it would have paid us to not book in advance at all, which is interesting. That'd be interesting to do some year-on-year comparison and see if that's every August or what's happening there. I'd also just like to show you. So these are all objects, and per object you have some options. So if I hover my mouse over here, I can explode this out a little bit. I can then go into settings and just have a. I personally don't like stacked graphs. I think it's very hard to compare. I prefer grouped. And now I can see it's very easily comparable. I can see now quite quickly who's booking in advance and who's not. From a sorting perspective, I'd like to see who has not booked in advance the most. And it looks like Lewis is not too well organized with his flights, so maybe we can speak to Lewis and say, hey, you're saving us a lot of money if you were just booking a little bit more in advance. And again, you can right-click this, take a snapshot, which I won't get into today, but you can export this, either the data or a PDF or as an image. So it's quite quick to get out as well. I'd like to just jump into a second app real quick, and this one is a financial sales and operational planning app. And down the left here, I've got revenue, variance to forecast, gross profit and margin. And I've got a few visualizations. I've got a pie graph, a line graph, a map, and a bar graph. And what I've done with this bar graph is I've actually colored the bars according to forecast versus variance. So variance to forecast, actual revenue versus forecast. And I can see that furniture and hard goods are my biggest variance to forecast. So there's something happening here that isn't going how it should. And I can see that just by looking at these colors. So I'm not looking at, we can show multiple things in one object. So I'm just going to select those. I'm going to jump into the next sheet. And now I can see these are the two products I picked, or group products. I can see now that the United States and Australia are our biggest contributors towards that variance to forecast. I can then go further and say, hey, well, it looks like actually there's this particular product that we're just really not too well planned with. And here I can see that our variance is $1 million on one product. So I can now jump to the next tab and say, I can see a breakdown of that. I can see our demand director, our demand manager, and our demand planner. And that's Ruth. We say, hey, Ruth, we've seen that you really didn't contribute or foresee so much demand, and maybe there are a few ways we can help Ruth just be a bit more aware of what's going on. So in saying that, what I'm going to do is just jump back into my PowerPoint. So that's the end of our hands-on section. And what's on screen at the moment is an invitation to imagine how these kinds of tools can take finance professionals away from the day-to-day running of the businesses and move you guys more towards driving your businesses forward. So if you look down the list here, we're using words like optimize, deliver, speed, transform. CPM and BI are the means by which finance professionals such as yourselves can dramatically influence the growth of their organizations and deliver huge value from the role. Yeah, so there we go. Once again, it's all about capture, control, manage, report, analyze. It's about identifying, improving, innovating. So I'm not sure if I can say this with a straight face, but it's not about being Charlie Munger, but it's about deciding whether you're good enough in your business to be able to keep making the same mistakes. Because as I said at the start of today, and as the second quote on screen now says, the world of finance, a finance professional has dramatically changed. As well, data really does drive the finance role. And Microchannel, as providers of not simply BI and CPM solutions, But for many of our customers, we're actually the source transactional ERP system as well, are uniquely well placed to provide guidance and solutions for whatever your most pressing problem might be. And we're just trying to architect something that really suits you and moves you well into the future.